Greetings everyone, my name is Alisha and Dewi Irawan, and now I'm going to present the lesson plan that I have made for the approaches and methods in language teaching final project. Before we get to the lesson plan, I would like to introduce the background case. The topic to the lesson will be process essay. The level of the students is intermediate, as the students are able to speak English fluently, which means they can speak and understand English reasonably well with basic tenses. However, it is evident that the students still have some problems with a more complex grammar, vocabularies, structure, and idea organizing. Therefore, they are deemed as intermediate. The teaching type is formal, as even though the class is additional, it is still held under a formal institution, which is a private senior high school in Jakarta. The objective is writing and vocabulary skills. The specific objective is that students are able to recognize the characteristics of process essay and write it. The number of students is 40. All of them are native Indonesian speakers, and some of them are fluent in English. There are a few things that I would like to consider regarding the background case. The first one is most of them is fluent in English. The second one is that 70% of them, or 28 students, scored bad in essay writing. The third one is they have been previously introduced to essay writing, especially to descriptive essay and process essay. However, they still find it hard to identify and distinguish the characteristics of descriptive and process essay. The last thing to consider is that examples are not very effective for the students. The approach that I would like to employ to this lesson is TBI, or text-based instruction. The reason is because TBI puts emphasis on the structure and or grammatical features of both spoken and written English. The employment of TBI in our case will be used to emphasize the structure of written English, which in this case is the structure of process essay. As mentioned in the case, the students have a hard time to distinguish process essay from descriptive ones, and one of the ways to differentiate one type of essay from another is by learning the structure of each essay. And TBI would be ideal to aid the students in learning the structure of the essays. I also think that the appliance of TBI will be ideal to aid the students in learning the structure of process essay, as this approach provides explicit knowledge from the use of authentic text. It is also mentioned in the case that the providence of examples are not very effective for the students. Therefore, it seems important that the students are not simply given examples without any explanation, and that they are also given the time and guidance to comprehensively learn the structure of the text. The explicit knowledge that they gain from the text will help them to quickly grasp the structure and characteristics of the process essay without having to analyze the examples themselves. This may make the students very dependent to the teacher at first, but it will be very helpful at the same time to ensure that they will be able to write their own process essay after the lesson. Other than the things that I have mentioned earlier, there are also a few other things that I would like to highlight regarding this approach. First, text-based instruction involves the process of designing units that focus on developing skills in relation to a whole text. The students in this case needs to learn the skills related to the formulation of process essay. Therefore, the appliance of TBI is ideal in giving the students the proper text materials that will support them in developing the needed skills to formulate a process essay. Second thing I would like to highlight is that most of them are fluent in English, which means that they are already familiar with daily terms and colloquial vocabularies. However, this does not guarantee the scope of their formal vocabulary and English grammar that would help them in writing essay. 70% of them, despite being fluent in English, are still lacking the skill of essay writing. Uh, they said that they find it hard to arrange and organize their idea into proper writing, which means that they are in need of proper sketch, proper layouting, and idea organizing. They also find it hard to distinguish processed text from descriptive one, which means they are also in need of proper differentiation in text characteristics and layout. This is also one of the reasons why I choose TBI, because this approach provides the students with guided practice as they develop language skills for meaningful communication through text. This means that the employment of TBI will provide the students with not only examples, but also a chance to practice the skills that they have learned during the learning process. This approach will also give the students room for trial and error as well as improvement, as the teacher will guide the students by not only selecting the proper and suitable type of text as an example, but also revise the students' work by giving them suggestion regarding their work. This way, the students will be able to quickly learn and practice the skills needed to formulate a process essay without the fear of making mistakes, as the teacher will take the role as a guide provider that will provide them with correction and revision. In short, I choose TBI because according to Mamba and McIntyre, all activities related to TBI are designed with reference to a particular text, which is suitable to our case because our case is very much related to process essay. Moving on to the lesson plan. The facilitator or teacher would be me, Miss Asha. The topic would be process essay. The skills and knowledge to be implemented in the lesson is writing and vocabulary. The class level is senior high school students. The time taken would be 80 minutes. The teaching objectives is first, students are able to identify the structure and characteristics of process essays and write them. And the second one is that students are able to recognize and use vocabularies commonly found in process essays. The teaching aids are laptop, projector, slides, and example text. There are two principles of teaching related to writing that are employed in this lesson. The first is that is guided pre-writing, and the second one is guided sentence combining to formulate a whole essay. The lesson begins with engagement stage. The reason I start with this stage is because the class is an additional one, which means that the students have already been introduced to the material and find it very hard to understand. To gain their interest and engagement back, I think it would be better to start the lesson with engagement stage so that the students will be reminded of the material without losing their interest over it. This stage will take 20 minutes with 15 minutes of video providence and 5 minutes of text example providence. The next stage is the activation stage. This stage is chosen to be the second one because it will give the teacher a chance to analyze and identify the difficulty that the students are facing by asking them to analyze the text and pointing out the structure and characteristics that stood the most for them before providing them with the needed material. This stage will take 10 minutes, which would be broken down into 6 minutes of asking the students to analyze the text and 4 minutes of asking the students to point out the structures and characteristics. The next stage is the study stage, which is the ideal stage to give the students the material of the lesson. Now that the students have been reminded of the material and are already asked to actively participate, it is time for the teacher to explain the material needed for the lesson. In this stage, the teacher will not only provide the students with the material needed, but also guide them to use the structure, the characteristics, and vocabulary to organize their idea into a process essay. This stage will take 15 minutes with 10 minutes of material regarding the structure and characteristics of process essay and 5 minutes of the material regarding the vocabulary commonly used in process essay. Now that the students are familiar with process essay characteristics, vocabularies, and structure, and they are already well taught on how to utilize them in organizing their idea, it is time for the teacher to give the students a chance to write a process essay on their own. In this stage, the teacher will ask the students to write a process essay regarding the video that was previously shown in the engagement stage, and they will be asked to submit their work. The lesson will be closed off by another study stage. In this stage, the students will be studying from their own work that they have previously written and submitted. This stage is very helpful to ensure that the students have fully understand the material and are able to formulate process essay on their own after the lesson. In this stage, the students and the teacher will go through the students' work together and pointing out the mistakes for 10 minutes. And then the students and the teacher together will revise the works, and the teacher will provide them with solution in a discussion with the students for another 10 minutes. The remaining 3 minutes will be used to summarize the whole points of the material learned in today's lesson. These are the samples of materials used. There are two videos that I used for this lesson. The first one is the sushi video. It is used for the first activate stage alongside with the broken down example of text, the one that you can see on the below. And the second video is used for the second activate stage. Here are another examples of materials used. These are the samples of materials that is used in the study stage. I use process as a structure and commonly use vocabs to provide the material for the students. That is all the lesson plan that I have made for the approaches and methods to language teaching final project. Thank you very much for your attention and time.